Welcome to the new professional StarCraft 2 with one of the very first Terran vs. Zerg tournament series and the new StarCraft 2 patch and hotfix. And who better to test things out than the former world champion Terran in the red? It's Micro Jackson, ByuN. Facing off against one of the best Zerg players in Europe, we have YoungYakov in a best of 3 Terran versus Zerg showdown. And I know there's a lot of change, but don't worry. I'm still going to ask you to smash that like button and maybe even subscribe and help me count the algorithm. And Jimmy, what do we have? 1,717 likes on this video, on this cast, and I'll cast another one. And I'll probably do it anyways, because I don't know what else I do with my life. But thank you for watching. Hopefully, you've had a good day so far. And hopefully it's about to get just a little bit better. 2 weeks before these games, a new patch, 5.0.15, went live for StarCraft 2. First one in a while. 2 days before, maybe less, we had a hotfix with some big yet limited changes. And it's quite a doozy. Besides the fact we're here in the Team Liquid map contest, checking out beautiful new maps, a bit overshadowed by the magnitude of some of those changes. And I'm going to stop burying the lead. Let's start with Zerg. Banelings now get plus 5 HP with speed. Again. Returning to that amount they had some years ago. The Spire now is 50 gas and 50 minerals less, as well as building 5 seconds quicker. So 150 takes 66 seconds to complete. And probably last, but definitely not least, the Microbial Shroud upgrade has returned. But Microbial Shroud from Infestors now reduces all range damage within the Shroud by 50%. And that's before armor, which makes it even better. That means once the Microbial Shroud is cast, everything within the Shroud gets damage, direct damage from ranged attacks reduced by 50%. Whether it's siege tanks, marines, not Zerglings, who are nibbling on your supply depot because ByuN went command center first on what is apparently a 3-player map. But yes, Microbial Shroud and Budget Dark Swarm on the Infestor. A major change, for sure. And I think we have a chance to actually see it on some of these new maps. But we're not done. For Terran, the siege tank can no longer be abducted while in siege mode. So, still can be blinded, but you can no longer yank it out of the way. The Viking now costs 25 minerals less, down to 125.75. Drilling claws, 30% quicker on burrowing and unburrowing those pesky widow mines. Hyperflight rotors is a quicker research for those speed banshees, about 20 seconds quick. Liberator sight, reduced from 10 to 9. They need their reading glasses, like so many of you. The practical effect of this is that Liberators can no longer see the edge of their siege zone unless they have a spotter, especially with range, kind of like siege tanks themselves. It makes it a little bit less... Wait, you can... I want to talk about the maps, but this is so important. We'll get there. We'll get there. So the Liberator can no longer necessarily see the very edge of its range, but you can still spot for it. So it has... it's less capable of poking a single mineral patch and killing every worker that gets nearby, but it has little to no effect in actual fights when you have plenty of vision. And of course, last but not least, Ghost Supply reduced from 3 to 2. And now has the light attribute. That means it gets killed by Banelings in half as many hits. Which would be true if the hotfix to the patch did not include a buff to Ghost HP. It now has 125 HP, as opposed to 100. It still takes less Banelings than it did, but the Ghost is technically better against everything that doesn't do bonus damage to light. There's a whole slew of Protoss changes, and the hotfix included some nerfs to the Hurricane-style storm we saw, but we're just going to cover Terran versus Zerg today and get the debates already rolling. So, the highlights. Microbial Shroud, reducing potential range damage, quicker Spire, and Banelings with plus 5 HP. Siege tanks no longer abductable. Vikings a little cheaper. Liberators, reading glasses, And ghosts are light, but with more HP otherwise, and down to 2 supply. Key to note, Microbial Shroud does not reduce spell damage, and snipes, as well as Widowmine hits, are spell damage. And Storm, technically, but once again, we've got the Protoss out of here for once. Meanwhile, the Queens, unchanged. Okay, well, one of them has changed into being in the unit's loss tab, as the Marines will slip behind. Trying to target some of the medevacs. One gets taken down. Carapace level 1 now completed. Another medevac. Is that an air blocker? Looks like ByuN exploring the edge of the air blocker. It's not very clear where actually land is on this map. It's Mothership. And now we can finally talk about the Team Liquid map contest and all these sick maps. Obviously, a very massive map, this one, with 3 players between it, 3 spawn locations. I'm pretty sure ByuN didn't scout with SCVs, and he actually sent his medevacs out the wrong way to start. Of course, he narrowed it down pretty quick. Yakov, on the other hand, with multiple hatcheries on the way. No infestation pit yet. A set of rocks will... Ooh, those siege tanks tucked into a pretty nice location here. The interactions in Ling Bane versus Marine Tank. Well, 5 more HP on Banelings is a pretty big deal. Once they get that speed upgrade. Obviously going to make it a little bit harder for the So, for you nerds, there's a whole slew of bug fixes as well. I want to point out, it's not just stat changes. There's like 100, maybe not 100, but like 30 to 50 bug fixes. And like actual technical ones. From parts of the editor, to siege tanks getting push priority, to Marines now having a cooldown on stim. Now this is more like a balance / quality of life fix, but now there's about a half-second cooldown on stim, which means you can't stim your Marines to death almost instantly. That's more for the noobs, but right now, ByuN not having nearly that issue as the siege tanks looking down on absolutely every Zerg unit. Lings and Banes on either side, but they can't get anywhere close to this nasty position on the high ground. But of course, there's a lot more map to work with. Melee attacks level 1 on the way. Yakov clearly the underdog in this match, but I think ByuN's main weakness is how predictable he is, which is also his main strength, all right? It's 2 sides. The depot is raised just in time. The 3rd base is vulnerable, but this siege tank is actually jammed in and creates a semi-wall in and of itself. Some of the SCVs are going to be taken down. ByuN pulls back with the reinforcements. Yakov able to drag most of the Terran army back home. Though still holding that position on the high ground. 16 kills, 9 kills on the tank. 66 drones versus just 54 SCVs, of course. There were more a few moments ago. Interesting, not even bothering with the infestation pit. Instead, almost a Brood War-esque expansion style, just everywhere. And you might lose some of them, but it's not about how much you lose, it's about how much you have to replace them. Burrow is completed. Baneling mines are set up. Of course, it's a bit of a double-edged sword putting Baneling mines close to your base, because they're probably going to scan for creep anyways, and that might give it away. But of course, there's always a chance. Hive in production. Baneling, oh my, that is nope, trust me, they're burrowed. All right, this is like a bear hiding behind a pole sort of situation, but ByuN won't be able to see him unless he uses those scans. And that has actual, wait, is there a, I can't tell if you could slip through there or if it's just jammed into the spot right next to him. Either way, it looks like Yakov took out his set of rocks on the other side, but the sheer rush distance between the players, the distance in general to get from one side of the map to the other, this is clearly not a small map. With 3-player spawn locations and all of them fully fleshed out. And a Spire is on the way. Oh, I failed to note. The Brood Lord bug was fixed, but Brood Lords were slightly nerfed in speed. So the net result is Brood Lords are actually somewhat better at attacking at max range, but they can't move as quickly. And I don't know if we're going to be able to see any of that. Brood Lord's still not very popular. On the other hand, Ultralisk. Usually the choice. And that's what Yakov is starting with as well. Adrenal glands. No infestor upgrades yet. Microbial Shroud does require 150, 150, and 100 energy on the infestor, which in my opinion is quite a limiting factor. And if you want to see a longer breakdown of the patch and hotfix, as well as some of my games, which, you know, a bit embarrassing, but you can look at one of the live streams on this channel. Usually I stream on the second channel, but I thought it'd be a special occasion. Gotta capitalize, at the very least. Ghosts on the way. So, the functionality of ghosts is unchanged. It's just their HP and their attributes what are adjusted. But Snipe and EMP and the auto attack are still identical to what you know and either love or love to kill. The Banelings are going to be a much greater danger. More likely to be able to close the distance, but, well, more predictable as well. Chitinous plating is on the way. ByuN has not made any real headway in slowing down the Zerg economy. 4 or 5 bases already. Zerg income at quite an advantage, and a lot of space for counterattacks as well. Though ByuN has 4 command centers already landed in mining, 5 and 6 and 7 in production. So clearly not slouching when it comes to the maximum economy potential. The base continually being slapped down by a single, well, double drop of Marines. Jammed into the corner. +3 infantry weapons about to complete. The Lings getting gunned down one by one. The Banelings target fired as well. 5 command centers at a time. More CCs than a poorly formatted corporate email chain right now. And ByuN setting up. He's hardening his turtle shell. Gonna give us the opportunity to see what late game Terran versus Zerg looks like. Yakov, on the other hand, is clearly trying to avoid that exact scenario, which is not, you know, a unique scenario for Zergs. Ideally, smashing the 5th base of ByuN. The first 4 are pretty locked down at this point. It seems incredibly unlikely that the Zerg are going to be able to break them anywhere close to cost efficiency. Efficiently. Words. I can subscribe so I can afford more. But this command center, a burrowed laying underneath and reaching out in a more vulnerable location. This may be the anvil that the hammer strikes down on in order to potentially break the Terran army. Corruptors produced in order to... Okay, so there is an air blocker that's kind of hard to see. Some of those fancy Protoss force fields. The medevac is trying to escape, but it just kind of leans. Always awkward with those sort of angled air blockers. Dropper Lords on the way. Wait, those aren't Dropper Lords. They're just... Oh, we're trying to leave. I don't know. Where are they going? Well, into the fire. The Baneling mine did not get scanned. What a miracle. Hits the center, and then he hits the... He double tapped it. The rare scenario where actually scanning when you get hit by the Baneling mine might actually be worth it. But it cuts into the Marine count a little bit, but overall, it's happening! Microbial Shroud is in production, and Yakov is going for the full Hogwarts build. Vipers and Infestors on the way. The big choice, I guess, to make. Infestors pop out with 75 energy. They don't have Consume, unlike their more Viper-based counterparts. So you either have to bank up the energy for Microbial Shroud or use it for Fungal. But it seems kind of unlikely, especially against Ghosts. You're going to be able to use both. Fungal is 75 energy. Microbial Shroud is 100. Double drop to the top left corner. Almost impossible to hold on to. Has to split off an Ultra and some Lings, but any amount of army supply he drags away from the center of the map makes it more and more difficult to potentially break through a campaign-style setup. Like, what is this? 1, 2... How many command centers are on this screen? 10? 12. There are 8 hatcheries. Currently 15 command centers with 2 more in production. 1 command center per minute so far for ByuN. And rising. There's plenty of bases to take. He's also got a fusion core on the way. Neural parasite. Looks like both players are ready to fill out the entirety of the tech tree. Just gotta check the Prima strategy guide in order to make sure everything's ticked. Well, I don't think it'll be updated to this version. But a greater spire is on the way. Mass ghosts have been in production. And with only 2 supply, more likely, Blinding Cloud on the tanks, Parasitic Bomb on the medevacs. That ghost with enough HP to survive. So that is part of the implication. While Banelings will be more effective against ghosts, they will survive more Zergling hits, more Ultra swipes, more friendly fire from the tanks. That SCV having like a mental breakdown as the units try to get out of the way and continually fail. But the turtle shell has almost completely hardened. There hasn't been really much of a back and forth. Well, I guess Yakov has made his attempts, but between the rush distance and the unit composition, it's not going to be a cost-effective fight for the Zerg. The question will be, is it an effective fight at all? The Infestor popped out from the ground, but this was a decoy. As the Ling Bang comes in from the left side, the Ultras, Blinding Cloud on the tanks. The Corruptor just bashes right through. 5 SCVs go down with it. There's a display command center ready to become the real deal now. Towards the right side, Liberator sieged up. Ultras, Ghosts behind the lines, just pop the Ultras. And the Ghosts, more than enough at this stage, a dozen against 1 Infestor, 1 Ultralisk. Where is the army from Yakov? He has 41, well, he had 41 larvae. But now we get to see the new Brood Lords. There is no way that he thinks he needs 17 more Corruptors. Well, some of them popped out. He's still got 11 more in production. There is mass starport here. We have advanced ballistics on the way. I imagine Caduceus Reactor. Those cheaper Vikings, potentially to combat this. Infestor Brood Lord is back with Vikings and Ghosts. Now, the details are so much different than its initial iteration. But I'm reminded of MVP versus Nestea, of DRG versus MMA. And now I'm realizing how much of a trend those early Korean pro gamer names followed. But the second one was more generous here, but a Thor is in production. The Thor can now jostle other units out of the way. It got the push priority upgrade that the Ultralisk did in the previous patch. But 7 Brood Lords. Another Infestor. Popped like an overripe eggplant. Yakov with 86 drones. 8,000 minerals in the bank. Are we going to see it? So here you go. There's no vision. He has to scan to get vision of the Liberator. This is the most practical. And in my opinion, it's kind of a genius way to target that aspect of the Liberator. All right, well, the snipes are coming out. The Banelings are nowhere close. The snipes will land, and the Lords of the Brood will be knocked out of the sky. This Liberator, the Queen, still tender. Queen's gone down. The snipes, the Broodlings spewing out. But where are the Corruptors? He morphed almost all of his Brood Lords into, or all of his Corruptors into Brood Lords. And now, continually trading with the Ghosts and Vikings. Yakov struggling to make much use of it. He does have Microbial Shroud upgraded, but the struggle is, in order to interrupt the Ghost Snipes, you need Fungal. And Microbial Shroud does nothing against the Snipes. In fact, it makes it less likely you're going to get a Fungal off because it takes so much energy. So we will see. 15 Ghosts, 10 Vikings, 14 Siege Tanks, which isn't necessarily a good thing against this composition. Liberator sieging up. You can really see the vision range here, but you know, in this scenario, he's close enough. So I do still think it's kind of an ingenious change for nerfing the Liberator's ability to annex an entire base by seeing a single mineral patch without really affecting its ability to be part of the fight. And of course, you can always just bring a spotter or scan. You're like, well, you're gonna scan? How much money are you wasting? When you have 12 orbital commands, all right, that's just map hacks with extra steps. So, despite the struggles in the fights, Yakov losing over double the resources so far. But if he mines 2/3 of this massive map, potentially, well, ByuN's building up quite a bank. Nuclear launch detected. That's one way to break a siege position. And Ghost with more HP means the nukes may be a little more likely to win. He cancels the nuke. It flies out into the sunset to create a new one. More factories on the way. A second nuclear missile. Fungal interrupts one of the Ghost snipes, saves the Infestor. The Brood Lord count growing dramatically. 15 broods. Spore crawlers throughout. The real issue is the gas. Yakov with only 2,000 gas in the bank. Zerglings, queens, and spores are all well and good. But I don't think they're well and good enough. ByuN now has 15 ghosts. Gonna have 3-4 Thors. The Brood Lords able to reliably siege. So the Brood Lord bug was that the little broodlings that they got on their arms there, or their metaphorical arms, they obviously don't have arms, would not reliably both fire off at max range. That's how Brood Lords work. But now they do so. After that, they recharge one every second or so. But after a couple seconds, you'll have a couple more to throw out. So that gives you a little more micro potential on the broods. But of course, they are a bit slower, even than the ghosts. Taking out another hatch to the 9 o'clock. Nope, 3 o'clock. This game has gone on so long, it's become the 9 o'clock. No. The ghost just casually strolling up. It's kind of odd to see a hit squad of ghosts, like 5 or 6 ghosts, and that's it. But Zerglings aren't going to do it. Banelings, on the other hand, if he gets close enough, but he just picks up the fungal incredibly late on the draw. Queues a couple up, but just heads for the main. Over 9,000 minerals. EMP on absolutely everything. That ghost cloven in twain, but hey, it could have been. Well, I think they were worth it. And it dragged so much of the army composition back in order to free up the center of the map. ByuN is starting to, well, I was gonna say he's starting to feel the pinch, but he has enough money to rebuild his army almost twice over. Well, he's working on that now. The Viking count starting to grow pretty dramatically as well. The anti-air, quite limited. The infestors, most of them hit by the EMP from the death rattle of the ghosts. 5 more overseers on the way, but the ghosts, notice the Brood Lord moved slightly out of position. Oh, whoa. Noticed you moved. And with the cloak. Thor drop is the choice. I guess he's kind of running out of marines with which to drop. He literally has no marines. A fungal catches some of the ghosts. The Vikings. Broodlings being flung out. But the only thing better against ghosts in this patch are Banelings. The thing is, Banelings have to get pretty close and personal to connect. So, a casual Thor drop. Oh my. Ultras and Banes. Oh no! The Thor tanks all the Banes! And that leaves the army in the center of the map. Gonna throw out the fungals across the board. A wave of fungal growth yanks in. Well, I think he just cast on whatever he could here. But ByuN clearly quite comfortable with this scenario. A Venn diagram of freedom with the Liberators, while Yakov struggling to find the composition. So, you build too many Brood Lords, and you're vulnerable to the Vikings in the air. You build too few, and you don't really have enough anti-ground to matter. That's the tightrope walk that he's continually spinning around now. He's lost 13... It's evened up a bit. Only losing 13,000 more resources now, which is no longer twice as much. Mining from over almost half of the map, and is continually maxed out. 6 more Brood Lords on the way. ByuN mixing in some Blue Flame Hellbats. Almost has +3/3 mech. Still working on well, not working on, but doesn't have +3 mech armor. But Hellbats, probably the most efficient. Oh no, the Brood Lords! The Infestor's a little out of position. Loses another Duchy of Lords. Liberator, he scans for vision. Not really a big trouble with 13 orbital commands. The Corruptor's here to deal with it. Another Liberator, racking up 10 kills so far. And through all the fire and fury, ByuN has built up 10,000 minerals, 6,000 gas. The Infestor Brood Lord. We haven't seen a single Microbial Shroud, but against this army composition, the real damage is the Snipes. And the Vikings, of which Microbial Shroud does nothing, besides waste your Infestor energy. It only affects ground ranged attacks. So, I was excited to see it, but I think we kind of moved past the phase of the game when Microbial Shroud would be useful, before there was an opportunity to make use of it. And ByuN doing the power move of just sending the SCVs out to die. Sure, he could kill them himself with like a planetary fortress, but it's such an intimidation move to send them across the map, wanting them to die. All right. Imagine what I'll do to your units if I'll do these to mine. Do this, these, what have you. 18 Brood Lords. The Snipes, though. Microbial Shroud, I think that was an accident. Is he using Microbial Shroud for his Broodlings? And Blinding Cloud? I can't tell if that was intentional or not. But the Blinding Cloud plus Microbial Shroud. Neural Parasite on a couple Thors. If you can't beat them, at least hire them. And the Thors, very effective against Ghosts and Thors. Yakov breaking through. Actually able to break through the critical mass of Ghosts and Thors themselves. The Infestor usage on point, though he's going to end up losing many of them. Enough Ghosts coming up to knock out more of the Corruptors. And the Brood Lords raining down, but if you lose the critical mass, then more and more Snipes will go up, as you're not able to interrupt them. The Hellbat's doing a great job. He tries to target fire the Ghost, but the Hellbat's incinerating everything else. 9 more Infestors in production. But a brutal battle for both sides. Looking at the results, though, ByuN has lost nearly as much Vespene gas. So it's been an arduous process, but Yakov making a lot of progress. And he definitely has mined more. Well, we have the number. Good thing I didn't commit. I was going to say he's definitely mined more gas, but that actually is not true. He's mined 1,000 less. I don't think he's been reliably mining gas off his bases, whereas ByuN has made it. In fact, he's mined out of his 5th base of gas. Wow. All right, the times of plenty are ending. But the Zerg, with much more in the bank. ByuN, it does seem, despite the nerfs, that the mass Ghost composition, especially with less supply per Ghost, is still quite a staple. And, well, that is a scary Terran army. A real scaring army there. The snipes coming up. Banelings looking for their opportunity. They may never find it, but they'll try anyways. Rolling through. Trying to get on top of the ghosts. We'll get a few of them. Takes a couple of the Thors with the infestors. And more Zerglings to interrupt the snipes. Broodlings breaking through. Thors will retreat. Fungal comes out. Falls back. The Brood Lords raining down. You can really see the Broodlings. Start a deluge of Broodlings instead of a trickle, but ghosts reinforcing. Interrupts with the Fungal. The infestors almost out of energy, and even more of them out of life. But ByuN is battered down to 100 and... well, he was at 120 supply for a moment. But he's got an entire Nordic mythology in the production tab. We have 5 Thors, 4 Vikings, a couple Hellbats, bunch of Marines, and some more ghosts. But the Infestor Brood Lord breaking through. And so far, ByuN has lost 2,000 more gas. 46 ghosts dead. And I'll admit those Brood Lords are finding some success. It really looked like the ghosts would be able to just shave around the edges. But YakOv has done a great job. I think he's adapting, as a good Zerg should. You just simply can't have your infestors that far away from your broods. They must always be together. Infestor Brood Lord is well known in dreaded composition for that reason. The ultimate Zerg siege. But if all the pieces aren't together, they can be... well, ByuN will be tearing them apart. YakOv just giving up the 4 o'clock, maybe 4:20 position. The Hellbats blazing through. ByuN is plummeted to 14 orbital commands. Planetary Fortress, building armor, very done. The Brood Lords, maximum Zerg upgrades. I guess he doesn't have ranged attack, but the only units that could use it are queens at this stage. The Brood Lords focused on the planetary. The ghosts hit their cloaking devices, and oh no, he strayed too far forward. Another 5 or 6 broods will be knocked out of the sky. The production tab is empty for both sides, at least for a moment, but the Olympic rings of liberation are coming up, and the tech tree is vulnerable now. There's a spire and greater spire at what was once, many moons ago, called the third base. But he either needs to rebuild his tech in like a full base trade migration nomad scenario, like in the top left corner, or come back and defend. In fact, he lost so many overlords that ByuN has almost no gas in the bank. He's still building Marines. The Infestor Brood, some Queens involved. More Brood Lords on the way. The main base, the Hive, the Infestation Pit, the Spawning Pool, all vulnerable. Another lair is being built. I'm surprised it's not... it's being built where the Vipers are already consuming. Maybe not the ideal location. ByuN trying not to get cornered in his enemy's former base. Changelings taken out. So he actually managed to get them all. ByuN with 14 SCVs. He currently has less SCVs than he has command centers. 13 orbital commands and 5 planetary fortresses. But that doesn't mean his income is very low. He can drop half a dozen mules and still have plenty of scans. Trying to expand to this center base. The SCV count is now well under that he started with. 8 SCVs. Well, here we go. The Brood Lords coming in. Fungal on the front lines. Gonna try to knock out some of the Liberators, but the snipes are lighting up the Corruptors. The Infestors trying to get close. And more Corruptors coming through. Blinding Cloud as well. The Brood Lords still raining down, but the Thors taking them to Pound Town right now. And, oh, those high-impact Thors really living up to their names. Yeah. Oh, wow. He dropped to 80 supply and then put 9 Ultras and 14 Zerglings in production, which I think is the extent of his larva. The Queens have all been on the front lines, and now only one remains. Oh, no. It's a disaster. The Brood Lords pounded into oblivion. The Thors, the Ghosts were sniping the Corruptors and Broods alike. The Liberators zoned out the Infestors. He walked into the entrenched position, and ByuN took full... Is that 15 Ultras in production? Are you insane? This isn't a clickbait title. That's real. I don't... And as a great man, arguably great man, Hydra once said, when I'm really far ahead and I want to lose, I build Ultras. And despite having double-digit Ultralists in production, he is behind on supply. The Zerglings are coming in. One Blinding Cloud could be devastating, but no! The Thor exploder rates the Viper before it gets close. The Ultras are trickling in one by one. He needs a tsunami right now, not a trickle. The damage is not there. The Ghosts are lining up their shots with what little energy they have left. The Liberators are punching right through the armor, and this is where Microbial Shroud might come in. But instead, the Ultras go out. Oh, it's a disaster. And by the end, the unit's loss clearly reflecting it. And you know what? Credit to Yakov. He dragged this all the way to the Supreme late game. And ByuN was on the precipice of breaking. One more pretty decent, not even good, but just, you know, barely above average fight. And he would have been flat broke. He has nothing in the tank when it comes to Vespene gas. But obviously, when your army is 7 Ultras, that's probably not going to be enough to beat the Liberators and Thors. So close. And I think ByuN's experience kind of showing out here. But definitely underestimating the Broods to an extent. In fact, I was quite impressed by how much the Broods were able to get done once all the pieces came together. Unfortunately, the Ultralists themselves in pieces now as ByuN holds it together. It would have been, I don't know, if the patch had any real effect on this matchup. Well, it's not over yet. But ByuN, a massive favorite. All right. Honestly, Yakov winning any games here would be quite an upset. But it is the map contest. It is a new patch. We did see a Microbial Shroud, but I don't think it was intentional. So, let's see our newest map. And I know the new patch is overshadowing the map contest, but I want to really stress, I'm going to bring up actually the patch notes. Not because I want to show you them. Well, because I want to show you them, but I just want you to look at the bug fixes, including such great things as... Where is my... Well, there are a lot of mothership fixes, but also an impactful balance issue where motherships were not playing their coolest available visual animation while constructing. This is intended to buff Protoss visually. Some updates to the animations of turret tracking. Not that isn't a balance. That's just to make the units line up with what they're actually doing more accurately. A lot of lurker and like, these are things that you would expect we'd have given up on half a decade ago. From my understanding, I do not have insider information. I wish I did. Hit me up. But it is the community and experienced community map editors, of which, I mean, look at these beautiful maps. But also, like, mod editors and stuff like that, who are helping Blizzard implement these changes. Apparently, there's at least someone, the intern meme might not be inaccurate anymore, who is willing to do so. The first version of the patch looked like someone trying out, like on the public test room, it looked like someone trying out the editor for not the first time, but like their first week. But then, by the time it went live, Even if the changes were not what we wanted or expected, or were unclear on what they're supposed to... The point is, they are implementing an effective patch, including, like, technical changes that the Balance Council, and this is not the Balance Council, this is Blizzard, and there is no explanation on why these balance changes are being made, but they are being made. And on top of all those bug fixes, just over a week after the patch went live, there was another, we can show this one, for those wondering what I meant by hotfix. If ByuN kills a drone, I'll eat a shoe. Or I won't show you. But making significant changes, like the Ghost HP buff, which I'm not sold on, Brood Lord speed, and another round of bug fixes that were not necessarily related to the first changes. Which, I don't know if this has ever happened in StarCraft 2. I can't remember there being another, like, more than this is literally broken and we're fixing it. For example, the Cyclone lock-on bug lasted until this patch. It lasted 10 months. Okay, that's what I was afraid of when I saw a new patch. We're gonna change a bunch of stuff, and we're just gonna leave it for a year. Alright, the intern got his yearly lunch break, and in the bathroom on McDonald's Wi-Fi, he managed to upload it. No. This is... I don't know what this is, because none of the patch notes have any explanation, nor expectation. But they've now set a trend of potentially having patches in a turnover time much quicker than in the past. So, what does that mean? I don't know. But hopefully, you're willing to take the journey one more time. We're no longer in purgatory here in StarCraft 2. But instead, somewhere else. At least for now. Like and subscribe. So that's why I think, one, it's important to talk about the patch notes and the balance implications and all that. But I really want the takeaway to be, this is not just stat changes once a year. We are not necessarily stuck with these changes indefinitely. It's gonna take one or two more of these cycles for me to feel more confident. I've been hurt, okay, many times. But we'll see. Cautious, oh so cautious optimism. Wow. A triple Brenda bounce and a creep tumor snipe ByuN with the Reaper Hellion. We're on Magnetic North. And more creep tumors being sliced away. As YoungYakov with a quick lair. No Baneling nest, and he's got some scattered gas geysers. I really want someone to try the slightly cheaper and quicker Mutas. Alright? The reason you don't usually see Mutalisks in any matchup at ZVZ is having them a little bit quicker doesn't change the fact they're a huge investment and they require a ton of maintenance. They are very high risk for medium to high reward. I don't know if we're gonna see it. The lair is done. Double Evo is on the way. It looks like Yakov is going for more of a ground-based composition. The double Banshee. The Overseers, but the Banshees fly right... Brenda! Did somebody build a spore in the main? You know static defense doesn't really work. We need to walk over... No, the high ground... Remember when we could fly? Susan, not now! I know it's a new map, but we're having real trouble. I told you to stop using Apple maps. Oh, these are Team Liquid map contest maps! I don't... Sorry, I, mic'd out for a second. Where are we? The Banshees in the main base. Popping 4 drones with little to no The Queen's eventually ambling back. Again, going for the quick burrow. Maybe try to catch ByuN off guard with those Baneling mines. He did have a successful mine in the previous game, but part of the reason Baneling mines aren't utilized more often is Banelings are not cheap, and 2, the APM requirement to make Baneling mines effective. Also, creep spreading makes them kind of counterproductive. You have creep spread over half the map, and they're going to scan. Or occasionally somebody crazy might build a Raven. So, the tank caught and killed between a rock and a hard place. Nice pick off there, but the Hellions will incinerate the Lings. The survivors. The Banelings chasing down. Where are the medevacs? The next tank, he's gonna try to save the tank at potentially the cost of the Marines. Oh no, ByuN in full retreat. A hive starts mid-fight. The Hellions wandering close. But those Banelings are a little bit tougher to take down. Some of the survivors will be picked up. But the Zerg overrunning the field. Banelings well timed. The Banshee's coming back in, but stray too close to the Spore Crawler and get knocked out of the sky. Really taking the initiative. Hydralisk Den is on the way. Lurkers did not get any direct changes, but if there's ever an opportunity for Microbial Shroud, it is important to point out that Microbial Shroud works both ways. If there's Marines in the Shroud, then Hydras will do less damage to them. Lings and Banes are fine, though. Again, ByuN slurps up the Marines in time, but has not really been able to put on much pressure at all. Lost a couple tanks on the field, a bunch of momentum, has barely been able to drive back the creep spread, and the hive is nearly complete. Baneling mines are scattered throughout the field. The creep spread looking very good so far. This is a thinner map, definitely. So that last map was Mothership, and this one Magnetic North, and we can clearly tell which one is obviously modeled after your mother. But Hydras, Lings, and Banes are the choice. And a single Bane mine at this point could be absolutely critical. ByuN is in a very precarious position. He's trying to force him back, but he actually just forces him into the medevacs. The Widow Mine slammed the point home. Is Drilling Claws done? No, it's not even started. YoungYakov definitely trying to push the Marines back into these Bane mines. Still, though, getting him to pick up into the medevacs while he heads towards Hydraling Bane. We again see a bunch of Overlords moving in. They don't have drop, though, so I don't think ByuN is going to be caught off guard or surprised by them. The Queen's going to get gunned down. Regicide on the field. 3 Queens taken out. The Hydras and Lings eventually... Oh, it's time! Hit it! Oh, don't wait. That's what I'm talking about. Critical hit. He actually waited. He saw it. You saw him select it. He's like, no, give me more. And he got everything he wanted. Wow. The big money shot from YoungYakov and G in Korean and English. He fights one back in explosive fashion. Those Banelings paying off and maybe tilting the scales there one way or another. Well, we got a series. We got one more game. Unless it's a draw, and then we play the same game on the map. Anyways. ByuN kind of getting off on the wrong foot, and then getting his feet melted out from under him. Ooh. And I always love... We've gotten a little less strict about the new maps in the TLMC, the Team Liquid Map Contest. In the layout. I believe they're... I may be entirely wrong. You know what? Maybe I don't say it. I was going to say, I don't know if there are actually even categories anymore. We just put the maps out there and decide. I think before, trying to really pigeonhole maps into category. Oh my god, there's a Moopy. Just chilling on these ancient... Oh, I love that. It's like a Diablo-esque. Just a little splash of color. Gonna be more splashes of color if they get their way. Is there a little indicator for Reaper jump location? Is that what that is? Or is that just doodads? Pretty sure you can jump this whole area. This is Andromeda. Our first map was Mothership. Our second map, Magnetic North. And this map is Andromeda. So, that's what we are looking at. And maybe I'll do a whole video kind of breaking down the maps for the map contest. But this is my favorite way to show them off. And this is my first time actually looking at most of them, so... I don't be skewed too much by individual games. But, honestly, it's kind of important to me just the look. I know, generally you're not supposed to judge it by necessarily the aesthetics, but come on. Alright, if I wanted to watch the same gray or brown pixels slightly interchanged, Brood War's right there, so... Looks like we have a rich Vespine base with just 4 mineral patches down the center. A double... Whenever there's... Okay, so this is kind of a big part for scouting. And one of the things... We should have started out with this, but I'd like to point out more and more of these relevant things. When you have a double gas like this on the edge of a base, it's a lot easier for things like overlords or even hallucinated phoenixes to get a scout. Like, you get all the information on whether they have those gas geysers earlier, and more reliably can tell whether they're going for a heavy tech sort of build. We have the little pervert pillars, where overlords or other units, usually overlords, sometimes observers, occasionally things like liberators, hanging out, creeping on everyone. Oh my, ByuN going for a 2-Rax play. Absolutely ground. That's not a wall. Hey! Oh, he went command center first, but... ByuN, no fear. Pulls the boys. Wow, he's gonna gamble it. YoungYakov with 16 lings on the way. He knows this is the 2-Rax. He knows it's only going to be Marines. He's saying, I will get damage done at the natural. This is not defensive. This is a Zerg rush, as they call it. Will he bait him down the ramp? I think ByuN, he can smell it. The stench of cheese on the air. A bunch of Marines on that. He's trying to bait it, so... this is not a master... ByuN is not biting on this. Those Marines on the high ground. Yeah, he's not going to get the damage done. He realizes how many Marines are up there. ByuN anticipated it. The Zerglings will get a couple kills, but... ByuN kept the majority of his Marines on the high ground. He's actually going to go... I feel like we don't see this utilized almost ever. But making a quarantine wall in your mineral... You could just lower the depot. Like... It's like the AI, or the Gold League players who learn from playing the AI, which has a tendency to build depots, like, in its mineral line, or, with, like, in between the barracks, which, I'm not sure how much of that is nature and nurture, but... Oh, Yakov with a few more drones behind, but I don't think this paid off. Ends up killing 2 SCVs for 18 lings, and he cut into his drone count early on. At the time, when usually you're trying to hit that exponential curve of drones and income, is when he undercut in order to try to slow down ByuN. And he might get a Marine here or there. Maybe not. Saves it with the medevacs. And, oh, the Zerglings are now locked in there with the Marines. He's going to buy himself a few more seconds. 54 drones on the other side. ByuN with his absolute classic build. The one that he popularized, perfected. The 2-1-1. 2 barracks, 1 factory, 1 starport with double medevac Marines. Combat shield and +1 on the way, but no 3rd command center. No quick upgrades. And the Zerglings did delay for a bit. So, it looks like there will be enough to prevent the dropout. Or at least discourage it. I lied. Man with gun strong. Hell yeah, brother. Baneling Nest on the way, +1 Carapace. But ByuN gotta be able to keep the pressure on. Very key, he did not have a third command center. So if YoungYakov defends strongly, if he's able to wipe out the Marines or completely force back the medevacs, he will have the production and the economy. ByuN really does need to either take out the 4th base, or of course outright win the game would be great, but 4th base will be going down. Baneling speed just started. That means those Banelings still have 30 HP. The scans. The creep spread out far enough to throw out the scans. The tanks. Trying to chase them with the lings, but not going to be enough. Oh no, the Banes! Ooh, looking the other way, ByuN. Bit of a mistake there, losing a lot more Marines than he needed to. A bit of a reprieve for Yakov here. Though, the momentum's still very much in the Terran favor. Definitely undercut by losing a chunk of those Marines before even Baneling speed was complete. Hydralisk Den on the way. It worked out well enough. Burrow. Love the utilization of Burrow early on in every game so far. It's paid off. Even when it wasn't a game winner in game 1. I think it's worth it. It's one of those upgrades that's so cheap. Almost always you have the money for it. It's just very hard to use without dropping the ball somewhere else. As there's a lot going on for the Zerg, but he uses the trees in order to close the distance more quickly. The Zerglings actually get on top of the tank. And clearing the field, forcing the Marines to be routed into the medevacs. Nice use of the terrain there, turning the trees against him. Hydra's in production. ByuN actually has, well, he had the worker lead for a moment. Baneling Mines on the field. 2 sets. But ByuN, well, unknowingly avoid them by simply flying across the map. Every diamond player nods. See? The map is dark and full of Zerg. I am Terran. Alright, Zerg's scary. And OP. Sarah's boring. Right. Oh, the scan! ByuN has adapted. Fool me once, and I won't get fooled again. But forcing scans, not even for creep, against someone who only has 3 orbital commands. Oh, he whiffed. He whiffed. He was so close, like 4 out of 5 on the target fire. But ByuN losing some of the Marines on either side. Yakov doing a great job of keeping the pressure on and forcing mistakes. Even though ByuN is winning some battles, Yakov's starting to win the war a bit. The supply is telling the story somewhat, but it's a tug of war right now. A give and take. Another scan. Again! I think it's worth it. Even if he loses a couple Banes each time, this is less scans, less mules. The fear in his heart. He doesn't know whether the ground beneath his feet are even safe. Gonna try to retreat. There's a Widow Mine. Oh, no. Oh, no! Well, I don't know if ByuN retargeted it or just had a fortuitous shot there. It was a little unclear on the ramp, but a big shot takes out Lings and Banes alike. And just like that, ByuN takes the supply lead. Infestation pit is now on the way, but clearly a much later potential hive out of YoungYakov. ByuN, on the other hand, is already working on +3 infantry weapons. Drilling Claw is about to complete the tanks on the high ground. Starting to move in. The upgrades really going to be paying off. There's not that much distance between the bases here. It's now 4.5 to 5 bases for Zerg to 4 for Terran. Huge counterattack before the planetary is anywhere close to done, but doesn't target it. And there's enough back at home. Ooh. Oh, the Zerglings. Gunned down by the dozen. Loses almost nothing in turn. Ooh. That could have gone much better. The Hydras. He has Hydra range, as well as speed, but ByuN has retaken the position. The Medevacs, one taken out of the sky with almost a full payload of Marines, but now scrambling to defend. Another hatchery under fire. The Zerglings trickling in, and ByuN one by one gunning them down. The Hydra is going to force the pickup alongside the Banes, but 50 supply down. ByuN is clearly tearing him apart now. Hive is almost complete, but with such a supply gap, there's no lurker down on the way, no infestors on the field. ByuN reasserting himself in game number 3. Had a few slips, and to YoungYakov's credit, dragging him this far, even picking up a victory. But I think ByuN's going to be putting him right back down. He'll survive a little bit longer, but there's just no more tech to look forward to. ByuN is continuing his upgrades. He has the economy. He's sitting at 200 supply. It's too much of a gap. Unburrows the mines and shows off that quicker drilling claws as well. The mines now burrow and unburrow quicker. Part of the new patch. You know what everybody wanted? A Widow Mine buff. But ByuN takes the series 2-1. We didn't get to see all of the changes, but you know, it's important to consider. You made it this far, so you're considerate in general. You've already liked and subscribed. That changes to the game, even if you don't see units like the Infestor or the Ghost, their existence and how they play is relevant to this stage of the game. The threat of Ghosts or Infestors, the implications of Vipers or Widow Mines is something that these players factor in, whether they want to hit earlier or later, depending on how dangerous that unit composition can be. Personally, and I'm going to give my personal assessment at the end of these, and not just on the streams, but I was quite impressed by how well the Brood Lords did. I thought we are just going to continually see the Ghosts picking them off, and ByuN clearly taking advantage of the lower supply on the Ghosts. I do think having more HP, yet being light, for most players with solid micro, is going to end up being a buff to the Ghosts. The Brood Lords did not technically get any balance changes besides nerfs, but the bug fix is effectively a buff. So that was clear. The Banelings, obviously more effective. There were no changes to burrow. That's just the playstyle that YoungYakov favors. So that was, I'd love to see more of that. That's just something I think Zerg is underutilized most of the time now. The siege tanks being unabductable, I think, hurt a little bit in breaking the Turtle Terran. But here's the thing. With stronger Brood Lords, now, I think Microbial Shroud is not going to find a lot of use. I know that might sound crazy, but the Infestor, so it's similar to Dark Swarm from Brood War, where damage is reduced dramatically, well, entirely in Brood War. But the Defiler in Brood War, much like the Viper in StarCraft 2, has consumed. You can gather more energy, which means for the cost of some HP on your units or buildings, you can cast more spells. Maybe not instantly, but quickly. The Infestor, on the other hand, does not have that ability. So that means you need to get an upgrade, wait for the Infestor to get 100 energy, which with ghosts on the field is not even a guarantee. And then you have to decide to use Microbial Shroud over Fungal or over Neural Parasite. So I don't think it will be a major factor for anyone but Cyril, to be honest. And not even because it's bad, it's just the opportunity cost is too high. Potentially. I'm unfortunately, we didn't really get to see it used, but it's just Fungal is too good not to use against ghosts, and it doesn't reduce damage from Snipe or Widowmine, so we'll see how it shakes out. But honestly, the give and take good. If YoungYakov had beaten ByuN, that's a massive upset. I usually don't talk about, well, usually we have pretty evenly matched, but I don't know the exact stats, but I would be surprised if he had a better than 1 in 20 chance just in any random series. The fact he took a game, impressive, well done, and a bit of an upset in and of itself. So make sure to check out more of Wardy's Team Liquid map contest. Let me know if you want more breakdowns at the end, or if you were wondering when I would stop talking. You probably already clicked off the video at this point. So, and just one more time, I want the takeaway to be, we're not necessarily stuck with this patch for a year. We weren't even stuck with it for 2 weeks. So, times are changing. And when I see people talking about it in the comments, as long as they're not just being outright mean for no reason, assuming their opinion is always correct no matter what I see is people caring. Caring very loudly and sometimes very, directly, but caring. So, much like Heart of the Swarm, let's make you care again about StarCraft 2. Like and subscribe. Hopefully I made your day a little bit better. If you got the means of motivation, be also check out Patreon, YouTube membership. Like and subscribe is still free for now. I'll see you next time. We'll debate then. Good luck. I think the next video will be Terran versus Protoss. Unless you want to see Zerg versus Protoss, let me know. Thank you for watching. Stay tuned.